All right, what is going on, folks? Welcome back to the one and only Wrestling Otaku channel, your personification of excellence on YouTube and YWC, where the best reviews wrestling and your three-time YWC channel of the year. And I'm back here. It is now officially Tuesday, February the 17th of 2026. So hope you all have had a good one and all that, a good weekend, President's Day, if you celebrate that, and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to go ahead and do this video. As you can see, I'm outside. Nice day, not too cold. It's actually been real nice recently. Hope it stays that way. But yeah, so before I go in to work here, I want to go ahead and do this video just to talk about something. It's not going to be a long video, but I want to talk about something. It pertains to AEW. It pertains to some moves that they've been making recently. So if you guys have been paying attention, since the start of this year, AEW has been adding a lot of talent. Like, they've been signing a lot of names. Some of them we've already seen make appearances in AEW. Of course, AEW has this whole talent exchange, and they've got partnerships with, of course, New Japan, CMLL specifically. Those are the biggest ones. And then they've also got partnerships with other promotions, smaller promotions, and so on and so forth. So they do talent exchanges where you'll see AEW talents do independent bookings, and you'll see independent talents or talents from other promotions make appearances on AEW TV. Specifically, like I said, New Japan and CML are the two biggest ones. But recently, we've seen AEW Tony Khan announce, since, like I said, the beginning of January, he's been announcing a lot of signings. Some of the bigger names are like, Hechisaro. More recently, we've seen, what's the dude's name? The guy from AEW, not, right, Jesus Christ. The guy from New Japan who was a part of, that Bullet Club faction, War Dogs. What the hell was his name? Not Gabe Kidd. Although I think Gabe Kidd has a kind of dual contract situation, because he has been making regular appearances. Clark Connors, that's who I'm talking about. Clark Connors was recently added to AEW's roster, or I guess has, again, much like Gabe Kidd, a dual contract between New Japan and AEW. Same thing with Hechisaro, as a dual contract with CMLL and AEW. More recently, of course, we've seen Tommaso Ciampa. That was the big shock appearance from a couple weeks ago. And his debut match defeated Mark Briscoe for the TNT title. And only had 2 title defenses until he lost it, of course, to Kyle Fletcher, which a lot of people are overreacting to. The dude's only had 3 matches, and he has only taken 1 loss. And people are overreacting because he dropped the TNT title already. And it's like, there's a reason why they did that, because they wanted Kyle Fletcher to be TNT champion going into that Grand Slam Australia show that we saw on Saturday. There was a reason for that. Tommaso Ciampa is not out of the TNT title picture. He's not buried or any of that shit that people are saying. So people need to chill out with that. But yeah, so aside from Tommaso Ciampa, we've seen Lena Cross, who made her debut at Grand Slam Australia after that women's tag title match. She was an independent talent from Australia. She's recently signed to AEW. We've seen those two independent talents that were signed recently, who wrestled against MJF at that one indie show. I can't remember the name of it right offhand. But yeah, I think it was like upwards of, and I've seen this on Blue Sky. People post about this on Blue Sky. And of course, I've, followed this, on wrestling news sites and stuff, in terms of AEW signings this year, because there are certain sites that kind of, archive, how many signings AEW's had. I think they've had upwards of 17, 18 signings already. And more recently, of course, the most recent one is the Iconics, who made an appearance in Australia. Not Grand Slam on Saturday. There was a show after that called House Rules, which was in Brisbane. And the Iconics apparently made an appearance on that show. That was like more of a house show kind of, but it wasn't televised, but, people obviously, there were recordings of it, or people, took footage of it. And the Iconics made their debut at that show to announce that they were all elite. So I personally think that's a good signing for AEW. Really helps out in terms of the women's tag division. I talked about this on Blue Sky, by the way. A good majority of the signings that AEW's made, I've talked about or posted about on Blue Sky. So AEW signed a lot of names. Like I said, upwards of 17, 18 names individually. So AEW, Tony Khan has been very active, very busy this year, and we're only in mid-February, so only a month and a half, and he signed upwards of 18 talents. And so then we have, what I want to talk about today was the question of whether or not all these signings for AEW are a good thing for the company in the long run. I'm going to say yes, and let me explain why. AEW, for the longest time since the beginning of their inception, have done a very good job at managing a big roster. AEW's had just a very big roster. Some people will say it's bloated or inflated. I personally think that AEW knows how to manage their roster the right way. I think, especially now that Tony Khan owns Ring of Honor, and you kind of have that separate thing with AEW and Ring of Honor where they're basically separate brands, but they're, of course, owned by the same entity, owned by the same person. So you can have, obviously they have AEW talents make appearances on Ring of Honor shows and pay-per-views, and then vice versa. So if AEW's roster itself becomes too big, you can always float guys over from AEW to Ring of Honor and then back and forth. And again, you could do that. AEW can do that anytime they want because Tony Khan, again, owns both companies. So there's no conflict of interest or anything like that. There's no big thing. Tony Khan can, manage who he wants on what roster and what they're going to do. But I personally think ultimately it is a good thing for AEW because to me, the more the better, especially in this day and age where you have a lot of people getting injured, talents getting injured. Will Ospreay, who's slated to return. We've seen vignettes of him. I can't wait for him to return. Jay White, who's been out for over a year. Guys like Wardlow, who have been out for a long time, extended period of time. And it's just a thing, Swerve Strickland recently returned from injury. And you got guys who get hurt, even MJF, the current champion, who came back from a lengthy absence due to injury. Guys get hurt. That's the nature of wrestling. That's the nature of the sport. And when guys get hurt, when top guys get hurt, it ultimately does affect what the company does, at least in terms of storylines and in terms of matches going forward, in terms of programs going forward. Well, the reason, one of the big benefits behind AEW having such a big roster is that even if 1 or 2 guys go down or even 4 or 5 guys go down, you got somebody who is right there. You got talents who are right there to fill the role, fill the void of those guys who are gone. And this is very important when it comes to the main event and to the mid-card, upper mid-card portion of the roster. And so I think AEW has done a very good job in managing that. Tony Khan's done a very good job since AEW's beginning in managing having a large roster. Now, you could argue that, obviously, the detractors are going to argue that, having such a big roster means not everybody can be used. And it is what it is. That's the reality. There's going to be some weeks where not everybody's going to be used. AEW only has 2 shows, at least 2 weekly shows, 2 televised shows, Dynamite and Collision. They used to have AEW Dark, which was, now defunct. I believe there was discussion about bringing it back. And then Ring of Honor doesn't have a televised show, but they do have shows that they air like on YouTube or on their streaming service. Ring of Honor has a streaming service. But you're not going to be able to showcase everybody every week, Only, obviously, the big guys, the major players, and the big storylines. And then you'll try to incorporate guys here and there, guys who will come in later. They'll try to incorporate everybody. AEW tries to incorporate everybody they can. And I think they do a good job of doing that. And now, especially now, with as many titles as AEW has, you have a whole lot of opportunity for guys, the men and the women, everybody in AEW's roster to compete for a championship, be it for a singles title, women's title, tag titles, trios titles. There are so many titles to pursue. And the benefit of having the big roster is you don't have to be stuck with the same 2 or 3 guys fucking rotating, in one division. Like, for example, the AEW World title picture. In other companies, like, for example, WWE, for a long time, they only have, like, 2 or 3 guys feuding over the title, and everybody else will be fucking all the way down here in the mid-card, not even doing anything, like, for a long time, or challenging for the mid-card belts, which either the Intercontinental title or the U.S. title, which had essentially become worthless, or, they've lost their prestige and their luster from WWE overbooking, booking them like trash, booking the champions like shit, and even the tag division, even the tag titles. And then later they brought a women's tag title, and that was non-existent because they didn't have a women's tag team roster. They didn't really have they didn't have like enough women's tag teams to substantiate or to validate or legitimize, I should say, having a women's tag team division in WWE. With AEW, they don't have that problem because there's so many talents, especially the ones they brought in. Like I said, the Iconics. They recently signed High-End and Maya World. You got teams like the Timeless Love Bombs and the Babes of Wrath, the current champions, the Sisters of Sin, and you got a number of other women on the roster who ordinarily they'll probably just, be floating around in the singles division. Now you got them in the tag division, and you got them doing something. You got them fighting for something. And of course, you got your singles, you got your women's singles titles too, the AEW Women's World title and the TBS title as well. So there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of chances for the people on that roster to do something, And I think this is one of the big benefits of having a big roster like AEW has. Now, going forward, I did hear a report that this was a while ago, this was like a week or two ago, that Tony Khan, even with the signings that he made up to this point, was not done in terms of free agency. So I don't know quite what that means or how many people he has in mind on bringing in, or if he's going to bring in any more at all, because he's already signed 18 people. But I've been hearing the big rumor of AJ Styles potentially coming to AEW. That would be phenomenal, pun intended. That would be a big major signing, much like a Tommaso Ciampa. Tommaso Ciampa was groundbreaking. Like, people freaked out at that Tommaso Ciampa appearance. I think AJ Styles will be that much bigger. No shade at Tommaso Ciampa, but I'm just saying AJ Styles, he's that level of talent where you get him, he comes in, instant guy you could plug into the top picture, into the main event or upper mid card title picture. And even though he's probably not going to wrestle for very long, much like, again, Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, he's one of those guys who's up there. He's not going to, wrestle, regularly. He's obviously going to be on a part-time schedule, likely, but he's a guy who you can plug into AEW's, roster. He's a guy who you could have a feud, incorporate into a storyline, have a feud with somebody. There's a number of, big matches or dream matches or, fantasy matches that people want to see with AJ Styles and AEW. And it's just one of those things, when it comes to AEW, when you have all these guys, when you have so many talents on the roster, you can get away with that. You can do that because, there's always room to feature somebody. At least AEW tries to. Sometimes there's that case of, talents not being used. For example, Miro, when he was in AEW, or Rusev, there was a reason why he wasn't being used because of the BS backstage that he was doing, or the politicking that he was doing, or the complaining, I should say, of not going over. That was the thing with him. And then there are other talents who weren't used for a long time. And, it's just one of those things. It happens. But, again, AEW does as good a job as anybody of kind of leveling out the roster to where they try to give everybody something to do. They try to give everybody a spot on the card. Be it upper mid-card, main event, undercard, whoever. Women's division, tag division, trios division. There's something for everybody on the roster, So I think that's one of the big benefits of having a big roster. And I think Tony Khan can get away with making all these signings because I think a lot of it's nothing but good to me. There's more positive than negative in terms of making a lot of signings when it comes to AEW. So I think it's a good thing, and we'll see what happens going forward, who he plans on bringing in. I swear, if it's AJ Styles, I'm gonna flip my lid if AJ Styles doesn't come to AEW. That would be huge. But anyway, so that's just my opinion. That's just what I think. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what Tony Khan does. We'll see what AEW does in the coming year. Really, the next couple months are going to be interesting. You got Revolution around the corner in March, in the beginning of March. In, I believe, Los Angeles is where they're holding it, or is Los Angeles or somewhere. I think it's Los Angeles. As I know, usually they have it in Los Angeles. I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to be. It's going to emanate from Los Angeles. I have to check again. But Revolution is in a couple weeks. And then after that, we got, of course, March, April, the spring months coming in. And we'll see what they do. So it's going to be a very big time, exciting time for AEW. And I'm looking forward to seeing what AEW has in store, what Tony Khan has in store. And not just in terms of the guys they have right now, because there are some storylines I'm paying attention to, some matches that they're teasing down the line that I'm paying attention to, but who all they bring in. It's a very exciting time, and they're getting hot at the right time. With all this ICE stuff, with all this fuck ICE stuff, with the Brody King stuff, and the national media attention they've gotten recently, they're getting hot at the right time. So I think it's nothing but good for AEW for them to bring these names in. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say for that. So that's why I think it's a good thing. That's why I believe the signings for AEW are ultimately a very good thing for AEW. And so that's just my opinion. But go ahead, let me know what you think. But anyway, that's all I got to say for this. So thank you for watching. Be sure to leave a like on this video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support I can get. With that being said, it's pretty much going to do it, man. So thank you for watching once again. Until next time, Rest in the Taco, I'm out. See you guys later. Peace.